Welcome everyone. My name is Martin Redmayne as usual. I'm here to welcome you to an afternoon session with a very interesting group of people. Very experienced, knowledgeable and hopefully opinionated individuals from the world of management and operations. I've got Sam Thompson from JMS Yachting. I have Richard Master from Master Yachts. I have Feargus Bryan from Watermark Management. And then I'm joined by two legends, David Atkinson from MY Palladium and Dughall macLaclainn from MY Tango. How are you guys?
Good, thanks, Rich.
Oh, good.
All good.
Thanks, Martin.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you looking good on a Friday afternoon. Listen, I've given you a little quick brief on emails. We've discussed this sort of via virtual methods. It's supposed to be what I call a conversation about what on earth you want from the industry, from the market, from the super yacht sector, from a manager or from a captain perspective. I posed this question to another well-known yacht captain friend of mine. He said, interestingly, do managers know what captains want? So that's another subject we'll maybe throw into the mix later on. But the way I want to run the session is first of all to say, listen, it's got to be sort of open and candid and fun, but at the same time, want some serious output, because obviously, whoever watches this video and this part of this session is to make sure people understand what people like Dughall and David want from the market, and people like Richard, Sam, and Feargus want from the market. So I'm going to do a series of questions to all of you, and ask you to sort of comment what I call an anecdotal, honest opinion of what you really want from this sector of the market. Because we're in the Balearics, virtually, lots of refit shipyard, refit facilities, and big focus of the actual Balearic Yacht Show is refit and service. So what do you want from the refit sector? Let's go with Dughall first.
I was actually going to volunteer myself first.
Good.
Yeah. For me, it's very much, I need to know that I can rock up to a place, walk in there and come out on time with everything done. And the hardest thing I find is getting quotes on time, getting quotes from all the different companies, organizing it all. So much so that we've actually employed a permanent project manager who goes and does this in advance. But even then, it's very hard, the boat not being there. So that's what I really want, is timing, because we get a certain amount of time to do a job and then get back out cruising, and we don't hang around otherwise.
Yeah, and is that a common problem across the whole market, or are you being specific to anywhere med-based or where else?
No, it's common everywhere. It's very hard for yards and refit companies to go and quote if the yacht's not there. So everything changes when they get there. But we're not given the time to say 2 weeks in advance to get in there and get 2 weeks of quotes. We're given, right, you got to go in, you've got 4 weeks to do everything.
Yeah.
So part of it's the way we operate.
Yeah. Is there a solution, Dughall? No, I'll tell you why, because I think if you look at other industries, there's a lot more planning involved, a lot more sort of itineraries, predicted itineraries, if you call it. So you look at shipping or cruise ship, etc. Could we improve the way in which we operate the yachts to make sure yachts are on a regular cycle?
Yeah, of course we could. Of course we could, but that doesn't give the owner what he wants. And with my owner, he wants the boat available when he wants it.
Yeah.
And the quote to me is, do what you can in the time I give you.
Okay.
So what I need to do that is the support from on shore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't see any way, the way I operate, and I've been doing this on this one for 8 years, I don't see any way to change that unless it changes from the owner. And the owner's, why should he change? That's what he wants. Yeah. And that's what we try to give him. Okay,
perfect. Anyone else want to comment on what you want from the refit market? Richard, what do you think?
Well, I just want to say that I think the system that Dughall has put in place to have a permanent project manager dealing with this in advance, so he goes ahead and he sets things up. I think probably Dughall's running one of the most efficient refit programs around at the moment, because he's sussed that out and he's been able to explain to his owner that to be efficient, he needs this person to be knowledgeable. He's got a great knowledgeable project manager who ahead of him and gets these. So even if Dughall's saying there's a slight frustration in getting quotes, he's actually running one of the most efficient refit programs around.
Okay, brilliant. So, but Richard, from Master Yachts perspective, from your perspective, what do you want from refit yachts?
Good project management.
Good project management.
Experienced project management. People that understand how the vessel, when it arrives, that yeah, there's crew turnovers, there's crew changeovers. That's natural. They've been at sea. So a good project management manager with assistants too, that younger assistants that are learning from them, which is incredibly important. So it's not just one person. They actually bring almost apprentices with them, that we can actually encourage the growth of the youth, the younger guys, to understand the various intricacies of the yacht. And they have to be on board, if not before, hopefully, certainly the minute the lines are ashore, because the whole issue is some knowledge is lost quite early on in a project, a refit project, because the crew are on rotation or they're tired and they've got vacation due. So it's very important to get a really update as soon as the vessel arrives, but obviously much better beforehand.
Interesting.
But we need to encourage the younger project managers in these yards now. We need to support them, and we need to also educate them and show them what needs to be done, because they are the leaders, the project managers of the future. So we mustn't just rely on the lead project managers in their shipyards. We have to also make sure that we support the younger guys. And I've seen that recently, and it's very important.
Yeah, I was saying that yesterday. I think the next generation coming through, we need to accelerate, because we're going to see a gap of knowledge in the next 5 to 10 years as people sort of step down from the market.
Huge. And, as the boats get more complex, that gap is going to get bigger. So we need to your word of acceleration is vitally important. And we have to encourage the refit shipyards. Look at the build shipyards. They're doing it already. They've been doing it for years. They've been bringing these young guys in and letting them walk around with them and learn with them in the design departments and in the management departments. We should be encouraging that with refit yards too, not just relying on our favorite refit manager. We have to encourage the youth to come through, because we're going to get a big gap in the field. And boats are getting more complex, the problems are becoming more difficult. And us, and we're getting older. And there's the younger generation that we need to bring in on the refit. It's not just experience. We need to encourage this. I'd like David to comment here, if you would. On mute, David.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, I would fully support what Dughall's doing now. It sounds like a real step in the right direction. Almost always, the planning is the key to execution of well, not almost always, is in every occasion. The planning is the key to executing a good refit, even a small one. And a lot of time is lost at the start of projects, normally on yacht projects, by getting into the yard and then starting to sniff around, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? The subcontractors arrive after a couple of days and start scratching their heads and looking around. They might have had the work list in their hand for 2 months, but they haven't really figured out exactly what's required. So sending somebody ahead, I think, is a great idea. From my experience, my previous life in commercial world, you arrive in a shipyard on a cargo ship, and the marine superintendents have already been in the yard for some time. They may have sent engineers from the refit company out to the ship to sail around with it for a few days to have a look at what they're expected to do. You arrive in the shipyard and the people are standing on the dock with their tools in their hand. They know exactly where they've got to go and what they're going to do, and they hit it hard and fast, and you're out of there in 2 weeks. Time is money for those guys, and I'm not suggesting that we need to be quite that time motivated, but I think we could learn a lot from that kind of approach, and getting a much more thorough scope planned out and detailed before we ever get near the shipyard, and come in with a clear plan and start executing it day one.
Do you think this should start almost at the new build phase?
It's a different process in the new builds.
I'm talking about the life cycle of a boat, in terms of you're planning ahead for things that do go wrong or can go wrong or need managing in the future.
You can certainly plan for the routine things, but it will be difficult to foresee at launch, exactly how many years it's going to be before you need to change your AC compressors. You can say, well, they should last about 10, 15 years, but you're not going to plan to change them after 10 years. You're just going to have a look at 10 and see, well, maybe we'll get another couple of years out of these. So I don't personally see how that could be so accurately predicted to make it a useful exercise until much nearer the time.
Okay.
You've also got to throw in the client as well into that as well, because they will change their mind when they feel they want to, and being location and where it's going to be as well. So.
Okay, Sam. So what do you want from the refit yards?
Now, from our point of view, exactly, we're hearing the same story from Richard and the like. Exactly the same. It is all about planning. It's all about communication. If we can plan in advance and we can get the shipyard on board and get them to review exactly that and the whole scope of works, what we're saying then, and when we arrive, then they should be there ready to go. And it is about communication between experienced project managers on our side, and that's where we like it to be. If we can have our team already there who are experienced, incredibly experienced, like these guys are, and if they can communicate that with the project managements on site and from the refit yard side as well, to be able to get a smooth communication chain across the project, things move quicker. And then if we can get it in and out and on time and on budget, then great. That's ultimately what it's all about. But that changes between shipyard to shipyard, and that's where the difficulties come in. And when you're getting that scope of works and when you're going out to tender, every shipyard seems to use a different process, and every shipyard comes out with different quotations and different prices. And it's incredibly time and time. We spend so much time getting these quotations from these yards and for the scope of works. And then it's down to relationships. If these guys are going to deliver, then you tend to go there. But the range in price is staggering.
Is that because the system is so inconsistent?
I think it's a combination of that and the personnel and the different capabilities of each yard. Yeah. We went out to tender for a refit period for a 65 odd meter boat, and we got quotes ranging from 7 to 14 million.
But also you get people doing time and materials, whereas other people will not do time and materials and actually fine quote it. So you get half of their time and materials is not even in the quote. So how do you compare apples with apples? Because there's not apples with apples.
I think
we push on the time and materials as well. I mean, we try and yet you'll get there and some yards are saying, well, we can't quite on that. And you go, but others are. How can you not?
Feargus.
I think there are a few things that actually happen here. There is quite a cost disparity running across the Mediterranean between different yards, and that's dependent on quite a few factors. The geoeconomics of where the yard's situated, labor costs, everything rolls into that. I think I totally agree that one of the bugbears that we all have when we're planning projects is developing a level quoting process so we can actually see, and then we can assess and justify our decisions about where to bring the boats. Now, sometimes obviously the owner and the boat's cruising pattern have a decision, and the yard availability has a decision in this. But I've banged on about this on many occasions, but I would like to see a lot more standardization in between the yards around the Mediterranean basin, not in their skills, but in the quoting process and in their communication and in their organization, because these refits are getting more and more complicated every year. The time that's allocated to them is getting less and less every year. Martin, you and I have spoken about this on many occasions. We all know what we're doing. We're all used to pulling the proverbial rabbits out of the hat to get something finished in time. But as the boats get bigger, the refits get more complicated. That whole organizational process is crucial to all of this now. And dual system of having a project manager leading in, I think, is great. I've seen that adopted on quite a few occasions now, and taking a leaf out of the old commercial book with the marine superintendents. That's how commercial ships get in and out so quickly is it's organized. Now, commercial ships are much more standardized. You don't have the custom element, which creates complexities for all of us. But this level of pre-organization is crucial. I would love for it to be able to happen a year before, but as Dughall says very rightly, the owners don't give us that option 90% of the time. So you've got to be able to move very, very quickly. I tend to now stick with shipyards that we have a open and clear and understanding process, and we know the quality standards, we know what they can get out, and we know they can turn the job around. Moving off to different yards, which we have to do anyways to get cost balances on us, is a difficult process. And for a lot of our yachts, when we actually move away from our usual shipyards, you've got to think very carefully before you do that. You've got to go in and assess whether the yard is capable of it, whether they've got the organizational skills, whether project managers are in there that can actually do this, before you make a decision on where to go. It's not necessarily as we all know, it's not necessarily the cheapest option is the best one. It's there are a lot of factors involved in it.
Just a quick general question is, do you think it's ever feasible the bosses of our market will ever understand that planning really does save time and money? And get, no? do your shaking your head.
No,
I'm just wondering how many people actually are going to say, listen, if we do this, this is what's going to happen. You get a better result.
Told them many times, my boss is an engineer and he should know better.
Okay.
But he doesn't want it. He wants, I mean, that's what they want. They spend all this money and they expect and deserve that service, and that's what they want. They don't want they don't want to know about the intricate details. That's why they employ myself. That's why they employ management companies like Richard. That's why they employ owners' representatives. They deal with it all. They don't want to know. Well, the ones that I've worked with.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, Martin, I think this is maybe a time, I'll just jump in here quickly if I may, from recent experience, and I'm talking within the last few hours. One of your subjects was how can managers support the captains and what role should we play? Well, now the captains are getting in with larger vessels, even small vessels, doesn't matter, but large vessels, massive crews. They've got a lot of issues to deal with the crew, and the managers or the project managers from the management companies have a big role to play in the administration, with meticulous administration, pre-arrival and during the whole process. You ensure that you have far less conflict during that process, far less understanding. And that's where the managers must support the captains as much as possible, because they're still doing their normal job. They're still running the vessel. They're still doing human resource management. They're still getting crew on and off. And quite often they also need a break. And so that administration, meticulous administration, is so important, because it does prevent conflict with the shipyards, which makes it efficient.
Yeah, understood. All right, thanks for that. That's the refit sector sorted. We'll discuss that in another subject, probably in Amsterdam or whatever. But I think the next topic I put on my list was what do captains and managers want from the marinas? There's a whole host of different levels of marinas across the market. What can marinas do for you that you don't get at the moment? Dughall, you start.
Again.
Your eyes lit up.
Space.
Yeah.
Space. Pure and simple for me. I want to be able to access, I need to be able to access a marina when I want to. And that is obviously hard when you don't use the same marina all the time. And we don't. We move around a lot, but we want to be able to, I mean, my operation at the moment, operating out of Croatia, we end up going to Montenegro, duty-free fuel and things like that, but because they've got a good marina there. And we operate down the Dubrovnik end, there is no marina there that will take us. We want to be able to stop, because it doesn't matter when the boss is aboard, because he just quite happy, sits at anchor or sits at stern to, rocks and things like that, very happy. We don't need a marina. But we want to sit, when we're servicing the boat, we're getting supplies on, we need to go into a marina and not do everything at anchor. And crew getting off and getting their downtime, brief though it is. It's highly important. So we need that space. And when we come into Palma, and we've noticed it more so in Palma, there's no space for us. Because all the boats that are there normally are all piled in for the winter and things like that. We come in, there's no space. Because we don't know when we're going to be there. So space is for me, berth.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I can just make a comment there. I think this would go for, I'm not speaking on behalf of engineer, I'm not an engineer, but I'll speak on behalf of engineers. Reliable shore power. The causes at night time when people need to go and watch, when the chief engineer is away, reliable shore power or unreliable is a serious issue.
I think that's been highlighted a few times, is that whole sort of inconsistency or I say the unreliability, as you say. It's a big potential problem going forward as we have more electric or hybrid projects coming through as well with different requirements.
And the damage it causes when you have unreliable electricity systems, then just before you have to go into commission, a blackout new systems can cause some absolute nightmares for the engineers scrambling away. And then when they pick up a charter or the owner, and they're having to tell him that his blinds aren't working in his cabin because it's blown a transformer. Yeah, it does cause a bit of when he's just spent a few million on a refit, it does cause a bit of a problem. And of course, after the refit, they go into Marina to clean up, to then pick up, and they get that unreliable electricity or power supply. It's fine if you get an unreliable,
Water
or something like that, because you can sort that out. But what the damage that the electricity causes is phenomenal on these levels.
Yeah, agreed.
It's good. It's also there's going to be a lot more pressure on the marinas, particularly in the south of France, due to the new anchoring regulations that they've brought in as well. So it's going to be fun.
100%, Sam. It's going to be an interesting season for that, and it won't stop at just France either. I think the Med will suddenly see some other changes coming. David,
I'd like to jump in. Yeah, thank you. Shore power is a big one for us, and being a larger boat, we find very few places where there is even shore power available for the capacities that we need. And those places where they do have it, it's generally not readily available. It's a time-consuming half a day before you get it connected. It should be a simple system that you can get in there. If you're only in for the night, you can plug it in, more than half an hour, and shut your generators down. It's good for the marina to have no generators running. It's good for everybody. So I'd like to see more facilities for larger boats, particularly in the marinas that advertise themselves as large boat marinas. That's something a large boat has to expect. And these days, fiber optic internet is a no-brainer. We're in the internet generation. If the owners and his friends can't get high-speed internet, they're wondering whether we're still in the same century. And I've been in some very well-known and very expensive marinas where you can't even get an internet connection. It's just they can't be bothered to put it in. I don't know what the problem is. And they're charging a lot of money, and it's quite almost offensive to pay that much money and not even get internet that you can get in the local coffee shop. Yeah. So that's another big one for us. One thing that I don't understand why we're not seeing very much yet is black and grey water reception facilities in marinas. It's a requirement that we should be able to put black and grey water on shore. And in most cases, if you ask about it, you're offered a truck. We'll send a truck to pick it up. So you're going to send a truck every day. It's not an efficient or a cost-effective process. That I believe that modern marinas should be dealing with this issue of black and grey water by putting in pipe connections on their dock sides, and as soon as any boat arrives, plugs in, and the wastewater is taken ashore. So that was something I would like to see marinas offering to us.
Yeah. Feargus, anything?
Yeah, one of the things I don't know much about how the Balearics is suffering from this, but we're seeing certainly up on the south of France and the Italian coast, the weather systems during the equinoxes and during the winter are getting substantially worse now. And a lot of the water findings, a lot of the traditional marinas are they were never built to deal with these weather systems. And we obviously had 2 years ago, we had quite a horrible 24 hours here. Last year, we've had a few bad storms. And the insurance companies have now started taking interest in this. And the marinas that have very good swell and wave protection are definitely at a premium now. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know what it's like in Palma for that at the moment.
Palmer's great, Feargus. You hit the nail on the head there, Feargus, with mentioning insurers and their interest in this. You really have. They are showing great interest in secure mooring facilities. More so as the market is in such turmoil. You're absolutely.
Interesting. Anything else you want to comment on the marine world? Hospitality okay, crew facilities okay. What else can we do better for you?
Down to the two captains there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't spend long enough in a marina to kind of worry about half these things. So the hospitality side for crew is probably more on the refit side where we spend more of our time. So the rest of the time, it's, yeah, as long as they got a good bar to go ashore in for one night, then that's all they're really worried about. I know a lot of boats sit in the marina for a while, but we don't.
Or a pub door, you know, like where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of marinas have improved over the recent years at what they're offering for in terms of services. A lot of them have concierge services, and you know, so I've mentioned the things that we're looking for, but those are things which we're kind of getting in an awful lot of marinas now, and it's a welcome thing to see. Help with the local knowledge, you know, where to find things. These days, a lot of crew look for a gym, you know, and I've been in marinas where they've had a crew gym, which is a great facility. Very welcome to find. You know, those sort of things that keep a crew morale going in a winter layup or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good things.
Okay, suppliers and subcontractors. Let's put that in a pot together. The people who sell your stuff, provide your stuff, deliver stuff. What can the subcontractors and suppliers do for you? What do you want from them?
Just, you know, particularly nowadays, we're finding, obviously, you know, it's a real struggle for a lot of the subcontractors getting a lot of the, you know, the supply chain has been affected because of the COVID situation. So thus we are seeing massive delays. And yeah, I think Sonos amplifiers or Sonos speakers seem to be like, there's like backlogs and everyone's after the same product. So to be quite honest, more often than not, the subcontractors and the suppliers are, you know, I can't really blame them for any kind of delays. So, you know, you push them on price. You hope that they pass on that price to, you know, which we can pass on to the client. But ultimately, you know, you go with the ones that you trust that they can deliver, and it seems to be that they're trying their best in this kind of market, which is really, really tough right now.
Yeah. Any other comment?
Yeah, for me again, lead times for supplies, very much so. And I've noticed it obviously since Brexit that it's got a lot more difficult in Europe. In Spain, it was very difficult when we were there beginning of the year. Subcontractors, again, it'll come back to refit. It's quotes again, just quotes on time and quickly.
Accurate quotes and clear quotes, etc. Comparable quotes, the usual thing.
All the same things.
Yeah, but I think
you don't want an inaccurate quote, do you really?
A lot of these people, the suppliers, do have people that travel and meet the captains and go on board, and that's been, you know, obviously been the travel restrictions. That's made it even more difficult. So actually, it's put such a greater burden on the captains and their heads of departments to try and get their parts on board in advance, because they haven't had their sort of the people that normally they would meet and be able to, you know, chat about anything in advance and then expect to follow up, because even the suppliers haven't had their salespeople on the road.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on suppliers and subcontractors? No.
I think we've certainly seen, and hopefully we're starting to get out of the logistical problems that were created by COVID. But certainly last summer and last winter had a lot of difficulty bunkering. I wouldn't say it was actually COVID related, but it was quite often an excuse that was put on.
Yeah.
In terms of getting goods or fuel that was of an appropriate flashpoint to be able to bunker properly. I've certainly seen operating boats out in the Eastern Mediterranean because Turkey locked down so tight. Moving boats in and out through there in terms of subcontractors, in terms of logistics, was very difficult. It started to open up a little bit now, but it's still early days, and all of the difficulties we had before are still here. I don't see signs of it alleviating right now. I think maybe towards the end of the season it might start to change a bit, but we're certainly, in terms of all our logistics, we're operating on the basis that they're the same set of delays that we had last year.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else on that topic? Right. Okay. Listen. Let's go into the world of brokerage. What do you want from brokers? Charter or sales?
Nothing. Private boat. Not interested anymore.
Oh,
just the way I've been, I haven't needed to kind of deal with them. So like it's 8 years since I've dealt with charter boats. So I'm out of the game really.
Out. Okay.
For the time being.
Yeah.
Martin, as you know, we're Master Yachts. We don't do any brokerage, charter or sale.
Yeah.
But I deal with a lot of brokers, for mostly charter brokers, and I have to say they've been amazing across the board. So all the big companies, the smaller companies, the boutique companies, they are so attentive to detail now, and they're being overwhelmed by inquiries, and they're dealing with it so professionally. I can't recommend how the charter brokers, how they've developed into such a service industry. It's just amazing.
Good.
We're the same as Richard, and as you say, they've had, particularly the charter brokers, had such a brutal time last year.
Yeah.
I've known people who have been in this game for many, many years, and they've had to sell their property because of the amount of effect it's had on them, and really been that badly affected. And people love to have a bash at the brokers and the charter brokers, because ultimately they do very well when the time is good, but the good ones certainly do. But there's been some really horror stories out there, and it's nice to see that the market has really picked up this year, and there certainly seems to be a lot of movement in the sales side of it. So I'm glad to see that they're actually surviving, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Feargus, anything?
No, I tend to agree. I'm very happy to see that the market's on its way back up now.
Yeah.
I feel horribly sorry for the charter, because they suffered, I think, worse than sales in a long process on that, and they've got a long way to come back, and I think from the management side, they're stakeholders in this industry as well. We all are.
Yeah. So
getting the boats out, getting them serviced, getting them operating, getting them running, it helps everybody, and that's so they're all part of the equation, and they do a very good job at doing what they're doing. So.
Okay, let's move into the world of crew. Okay, you all have experience with a lot of crew members out there. What do you want from crew going forward? What's the future of crew? What do you want from crew? It's an interesting subject from a future perspective, I think.
Well, the crew situation at the moment is there's an incredible shortage of crew, and particularly of qualified crew. And everyone says that you need a bit of experience. It's very limited at the moment. Now, whether that's because people are sticking, or the fact that they're stuck in Australia or New Zealand or South Africa and not willing to travel, whichever it may well be, from a management's perspective, ultimately, crew. The crew dynamics and how crew are being perceived, it seems to be fluctuating quite a bit. And there's a few people who are a little bit more old school. I'm probably a little bit more into that bracket as well, unfortunately. That brought up with a slightly different ethic, and nowadays we just have to adapt to how crew are entering into the industry. It's much more professional. It's much more focused in regard to how that is, and particularly this season is being able to try and get a better training philosophy, and trying to bring greener crew into the industry and try to get them trained up, not quickly, but properly.
David, oh, John Richard, sorry, you go.
No, I just, because I'm actually going to suck Dughall in here on this one. So he knows what I'm going to do here. Well, during this period of travel restrictions and crew not being able to get ashore, and quite often having to stay on board for sort of isolation periods, etc. We do have to be aware of mental health issues with crew that aren't able to travel home to their families, are locked on board at certain periods of time to be able to ensure that they clean of the virus, and we found that more and more. And Dughall took a step forward. And Dughall, I'd love you to comment on the steps that you took with your crew that had been working extremely hard for a long period of time. So Dughall, would you please comment on that? Because I think it's remarkable.
Well, I'm not going to take all the credit, because it was something that I'd worked on with previous management, and I was approached by one of my chief officers just to reinstigate that. But what you guys done at Master Yachts is slightly different from that. So what we did was we got someone to do a kind of small survey just to see the status of the crew and where they were all at in their mental health, as well as their lifestyle and things like that. And then they each had a 20-minute interview with a kind of, I think she was a life coach, something, Richard? No, 100%. Yeah. And then she gave a report back to Richard and also myself and the other captain. And from that, we've been able to instigate some changes in the way we run things, because nobody's perfect, and I'm not a human resources person. I'm not trained in dealing with mental health and things like that. So I need as much assistance as I can to be able to notice these things and see where people are kind of falling down. And it is out there, and even in a crew like ours, a lot of them been together for a long time. I mean, I've worked it out. My senior crew, we've got over 60 years working with this owner together between the senior positions, and even us, we have our issues, and we have our mental health issues. So this has brought to the fore some of the things, and hopefully myself and Sam, the other captain, will be able to kind of assist with kind of going forward and giving these guys the support they need.
Yeah, I think the crew as a whole, going back to the point, Feargus, I think what's very interesting in terms of the proximity they live in and what they've been going through the last sort of 15, 16 months. We've seen a lot of people sort of let go or downsize on crew complements and stuff. Looking at Sam's point, we do have, I think, a long-term problem of developing new people, and more importantly, keeping them focused and let's say positive about what is a very, very seriously difficult job sometimes. And to me, that's something that I do get concerned about, is what is the next generation of crew going to become or going to deliver in terms of another 2,000 yachts in the next 10 years needing 30,000 people. It's quite a significant sort of issue we have to address as to where we find or how we develop and how we, going back to your project management topic earlier on as well, right? We need a lot of new people in this industry. It's going in a direction where human resources and ability to cope with the demands is going to be one of our biggest, I would say, tasks to deal with.
I have a real issue on this, Martin, because I do believe that the crew that are being brought into the industry are being sold a dream of something, which is basically either an Instagram or Facebook dream. I know of schools who send these youngsters into the south of France or Parma or wherever it is, filled up with all these courses. Most of them not worth the paper they're written on or whatever it may well be, with dreams that they're going to be highly qualified, brilliant, walk straight into jobs. They spend a fortune on these courses. They come over here, spend a fortune on flights, and not recently, and then they spend a fortune, obviously, living in the south of France and doing that, and they're just being sold a dream. They last a season, two seasons at the most, and then they're gone again. And it's trying to create some, I don't know, maybe it's regulation in regard to the training schools or something like that, and getting a better structure. And as you say, project management, as Richard was saying, getting the young project managers, into the industry and understanding the path and growing into a role. It's exceptionally hard, and it is one which I'm really, really concerned about, to be honest.
So much.
I think we have really interesting. We've seen this time and time again, and I totally agree with Dughall that the crew's mental health, especially over the last 18 months, has suddenly become, it's something that's really, really important. And one of the things that we've found is that, and this goes back to the training issue, is that I think a lot of the young crew that come out now, they don't have a real understanding of what everybody's role in the industry is. Because we as a management company quite often get, I give you a great quote. When I walked on board one boat 2 days before Italy locked down in February last year, and the first meeting I had with the crew, the HOD sat me down and said, "So what are you going to do about this virus problem?" And then it's, I mean, that was this classic disconnect.
Yeah.
And all of us, from the crews to the management companies to the shipyards to the brokers, we all have a role to play in this. And the more that the young crew and the people coming into the industry understand those roles and understand the need for those different roles, the better, I think, the better grounded they'll be, and the better prepared they'll be to understand what's actually going on. Because to run an 80, 100 meter boat, or even a 60 meter boat, it's a huge operation involving an awful lot of people, both on board and off board. And everybody needs to understand that it is a big and complicated operation, and that some of the decisions that tend to come from both the captains and the owners and the management, though it might not look logical on the face of it, it's being driven by forces that are quite often much bigger than that particular deckhand's role or that stewardess's role. So there's obviously you can't explain everything to everybody, but a better and more rounded understanding of what's going on of people coming into the industry, I think, is a very valuable thing.
Yeah, I think the sort of the pathway, as Sam was saying, is pretty sort of over-egged, if you like, in the various initial phases. It does worry me that this next generation just thinks it's not a holiday, but it's a well-paid ski chalet type escape to the sun, and it is not seen as any sort of form of career path. And that's, to me, a bit of a concern, because we need people with longevity now. We need to sort of build for the future, because there is a generation who are going to leave this market in the next 5-10 years. And going back to the thing of expertise, experience, and knowledge, that bleed is quite concerning, because the yachts are getting more and more complex and more sophisticated. And our career paths are still fairly basic in terms of some of the entry-level training programs or development programs.
Also, what you're finding out is everybody wants to be a chief engineer, a chief officer, or a captain, or even a chief stewardess. They all want it. They all want it very quickly. So, because obviously it's get paid better, and it's and you get more leave, and you get rotation and things like that, especially on the bigger boats now. So people got these expectations that they're going to get there that quickly when they're not. Some people might do it. There are people out there who, I mean, I've got a 24 or 25-year-old second officer or something, but it's not the same as it used to be. I mean, in the old days when I walked in, and here we go, the old days, but I walked in just expecting to go sailing and not worried about the cost or the money or anything. I was just going, I was a yacht bum then. And it's become so much more professional, so much more career-based. Sorry?
You still are.
Oh, yeah, true, but if I could. So much more career-based and so much more professional. In fact, it suits my personality. I like it being professional. I like it. I didn't like the cowboy effect that I used to work under, but it was okay when I was younger, but not now. But younger people coming in still see initially that it's a cowboy game, really, and then they get hit by a boat with full ISM and safety culture, and they go, well, what's all this? Why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do this? But once you mentor them and once you teach them, then it becomes their culture. So what we possibly need to do is, before they even get in there, is educate them. And this is what yachting is about now. It's much more professional. It is a career. It is a job. It's the real world, not it's a holiday.
Yeah.
Maybe some form of maritime college rather than just a STCW kind of training centre. Do a proper college course, like they do at Fleetwood or Warsash for the commercial guys.
Got so many people coming through, so many people to fill the spaces. That would be quite a big operation to do.
Yeah, and it's a cost too.
And then they all want to be a captain.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, David, thanks.
Yep. I observe the same thing, that and it's not across the board. You know, everybody's different, and you see there are still some people coming in because they're passionate about the industry and it appeals to them, and they just want to do it because that's what they want to do. But there are, by the same token, quite a lot of people coming in because they've been sold a dream of getting quick money and getting fast promotion. You know, just do these courses and you're going to be a bosun next year, and they do a season, and you know, then they want to be bosun, they want to be second mate, and that has combined a little bit with the expansion of the industry, and this season now, where we've got a shortage, we've lost a few people to the COVID situation. In fact, some people are getting promoted very quickly, and they're setting an example. And they say, "Oh yeah, you see, this guy's a bosun. He's only been on one season. Why can't I be that?" So there's a lot of pressure from these people to try and push forward and advance their careers too quickly, in my view. We need to pace things a little bit. And I don't know really what the answer is, or how we manage those expectations, but it's important, I think, to manage those expectations of people joining, so they understand what a really a good career path should look like, and how much they need to invest in it, not just in courses, but in time and growth and personal development on board and mentoring.
Yeah, 100%. Chris, what do you think of this, Richard? Because I think from a fleet perspective, or from hiring and sort of finding the new people, it's been a topic we've talked about for many, many years now, this career path management or expectation management. What are you doing at Masters to I think, manage this process, let's call it?
I think it's more, we obviously, I mean, from our crewing department, we're looking, when we are searching for crew, we're trying to look for the experience, but we also believe in the youth coming in and growing them on board. But that's a mentoring program, and that depends on the leadership on board, and that's so incredibly important. But for the captains and the chief officers and the chief engineers to mentor the juniors, they need support, because they don't have the time to mentor the juniors and do all their administration and everything else. So for us to take on some of that administration, what we call yacht support administration, is so important, because it gives them more time to mentor, and that's so incredibly important. I mean, I know the captains that are on this forum right now, I know what they do to, you know, bring people up to the bridge, making sure the department heads are educating the juniors there. So it's really an onboard matter of mentoring, but finding the right matches and building a team. Heads of department. I don't know, Sam, what do you think?
To be honest, it's very similar. You know, it absolutely, but we've got to find the environment where people are happy to do it. The trouble is, you put them into such a busy yacht with a busy schedule, and the mentoring, you know, can that take place? It's actually probably going to put people at risk, you know, which is this concern. So, you know, it's one of those ones where, you know, we try to encourage at least 2 new green crew in regard to an interior and exterior on the yachts that we've got. But then you've got to have the people who are in there to be able to help them up that.
The yacht's got to be big enough.
Yeah, we need space here. We need space.
I wish I did some.
No, we need the space. But I think what's also interesting is that I ask the question is, and this is to all of you now, is that, is the current entry-level training good enough?
I'd say no.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't think so.
I would say the training is good enough, because you can do most of the onboard training on board. What I don't see is the expectation. The expectation is too high. and they don't realize they're coming on. Basically, we're all cleaners on board a yacht, all of us. From me downwards, it's just that I'm a manager of cleaners, and engineers clean, stewardesses clean, and deckies clean. So even the chefs clean. So we all clean. So people don't realize that is the main core of their job, is to clean this damn boat. That's what it is. And so their expectation is, oh, I'm going to drive tenders, I'm going to go swimming with the guests, I'm going to do this, that, the next thing, and I'm going to serve cocktails all afternoon. No, it's not that.
Any other comment on crew?
Yeah, I just going on about the mentoring. It's to me, I find it a little bit disheartening sometimes, because we every year hire at least 2, sometimes 3 green crew and train them up. And at the end of a year, you know, I've finally got a very productive and useful crew member who knows their way around, and there they go and get a bosun's job on a slightly smaller boat. You know, so I sometimes feel like we're a training ship for half of the fleet.
Snap.
Yeah. So
I think, as you say, David, the retention is something that's not always straightforward in this market, because there's always something being dangled in front of someone who looks good, which I think is probably something to be addressed from a contractual point of view. Maybe I don't know, but it's like, we need to go and keep. If you train someone, you need to keep them as long as you can. You invest the time in them.
I think a lot of this it comes back to their expectations, because I mean, when I started out in this industry, it was almost an unwritten rule that you'd give at least a year or 2 to a boat before you considered moving on, and you would never move on during the season. It was always when you did move on, it was at a quiet period, at a mutually agreed period. But going to see, okay, I was a lot younger then, and this was in the early 90s and late 80s. You still had a perception of a career path, that you had to work your way up through the various different posts on the boat, and that it's been lost somehow. And the only place where I can see it being lost is actually at the entry into the industry, because my partner is deeply involved in crew recruitment, and one of her great frustrations is crew members taking jobs, lasting a week and a half until a better job comes along, and then jumping. And that, for me, is it doesn't work for anybody. It's very difficult, and you end up, but that's down to the responsibility of the actual crew member to take a little bit of moral responsibility in this and actually treat it as a learning experience and as a job, because that's what all the captains, that's what everybody else is trying to do, is to train up qualified people and hopefully to keep those qualified people. Now, there are situations, obviously, on every boat and every season where people get moved on or things don't work out, but by and large, people coming into the industry should be prepared to honor contracts and put in the time to actually do these things.
But I think that's also a two-way street.
Yeah.
So I mean, the captains and the head office and the heads of department should also be kind of making it worth their while to stay, as well as not bending over backwards, but making it worth their while in training and development to make it worth their while staying. If you go on a boat that nobody's going to do anything for you, and they can see that within a week they don't really care about you as crew member, why should you stay if something better comes up? So when we're just as much at fault as senior management and on board as juniors in that whole scenario you're talking about.
Yeah, the environment's changed too. You know, when in the times we're talking about, when you got on a boat and you decided to stay for a year, you were just got on with your job and you were engrossed in that. But now everybody's sitting in the crew mess and they with their phones out, and they can tell you every job that's on offer anywhere in the world, and they're all swapping them around. Hey, look, somebody's offering $200 a month more than we're getting here. You know, and it's the temptation is there the whole time.
I mean, I feel that I'm doing well to keep people for 2 years. That's why I aim to keep people for 2 years, especially the junior positions. I get 2 years out of them, which is very good for a junior position, especially when it used to be 1 year. but and senior positions, I try to, obviously we go a lot longer. But I've got people there who've been there a while and they want to move, but there's nowhere to go as well. Upwards, they want to go upwards, so they have to leave. So you've got this whole dichotomy of, do I go or do I stay, literally. And so it's another conversation I've had on another forums about crew longevity and crew staying. And yeah, I don't know, what can you do about it?
Just on a different note, we found over the last 2 years that we've been contacted far more often by the families of junior crew inquiring after their crew members, and that didn't happen in the old days. Like, certainly, if I heard that my mother or father had called my manager to find out how I was, it would be a whole different scenario. So yeah, but we have. I don't know, Sam or Fergus, I don't know if you found it, but we are contacted more and more by families of junior crew to check on how they are.
Oh, exactly.
That's related to the media coverage of accidents or incidents.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's even different than that. I think when the longest sailing trip I ever did was actually on the ex-Jessica. We ran from Palma to Fremantle. We were 2 months at sea. And there was no communication. At that point, it was normal. I remember calling my mother when we landed in Fremantle, having a short conversation, and then going off to the pub. But now there's this expected ability to communicate all the time. And I think that's unfortunate. We get it in our company a lot. We get parents calling in to see how.
But that's also attracting a different type of yachty, because the days are the people who wanted to escape the world, like you and I probably. And I only want to send a postcard from St. Helena, and that's about it. I didn't even want to talk to my parents that much. So your mum was very lucky to get that phone call. Yeah, so we're attracting a different type of yachty who want to stay in contact. They've been brought up in this contact world where everything's there at the fingertips, and so we have to expect that, and we have to roll with it.
Interesting. Okay.
My wife is very happy I've got contact for now. Me, not so much.
Good stuff. Right, okay. The Balearic Yacht Show in the Balearics. Let's throw a question. What can the Balearics do? What do you want from the Balearics as a group of islands? From a management or a yacht perspective?
From me, from my size, somewhere to haul out. And I would come here more often. There's nowhere for my size of boat to haul out.
Yeah, I'll second that.
But if it was here, you'd like to be here?
100%.
Why?
Better depth of field of contractors, the more knowledge, more experience than probably anywhere else in the Med.
Okay, good. David, you're seconding that. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying. There's a great infrastructure there, and it feels more focused than in many other places.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's because it's concentrated in the island, where other places there are perhaps contractors in other locations, but they're more spread out. They're not so dedicated to the service in that one zone. So yeah, if it feels when you're in Palma that you've got everything to hand, So I think it's a good location, but right now they can't handle boats of our size. So yeah, it'd be nice if they could.
Yep. Sam or Richard?
Well, Rich, I'm just down here, so we're at the show. It's a nice show, and we have our technical team down here. So we're doing 3 refits right now, and yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a fantastic hub for us for doing that work. And we would love to see these big boats come in and be able to work with them as well. We love it here.
Richard, being a local?
Being a local, I won't be cheeky and doing self-promotion here, because Sam's on the line. But no, for us, it's just the uniqueness of being able to have the shipyard with an amazing amount of experience on one side of the water, and then have the other shipyard that enables captains and the crew to have their choice of contractor under certain, of course, provisions, and be able to do that. And also for someone like Sam to come in and bring a team in, and they are able to choose the contractors that they want to use, and the team that the crew want to use freely. And that's quite unique, really. And I think that's something that Palma has brought, Mallorca has brought to yachting, which gives some freedom of selection. But on the other hand, I presently have a yacht in the shipyard where I was doing an inspection the other day, and I was there in 1991, and there's still the metal worker is still the same chap. He even recognized me. And so I don't know how I did that, because I don't look anything like I did 20 years ago. No, just quite unique. And of course, I live on, that's beautiful. And for crew, it's safe. I mean, I know a vessel that we have in port at the moment, the crew this weekend are going, last weekend, they hired a house in the middle of the country and all just had a relaxing time around the pool. This weekend, they're chartering a catamaran to go and have a bit of fun. And that's easily done over here, and it's safe for them to move around. So I think that's also a major benefit of the Balearics itself, that's Ibiza. And, you know, you want to change, you can go to Ibiza and you know what happens there. You want another change, you go right and you go to Minorca, and you've got some totally different environments. So quite unique, actually, and fantastic support services for yachts that are visiting.
Anything missing apart from big capacity?
Direct flights to France.
There you go. That's right.
Yeah, whatever happened to those? They died, didn't they? It's a shame. Fergus, your comments on Balearics. What do you want?
A lot of it revolves around capacity. I think if there was a big synchro lift or dry docking facilities there, it would make it certainly more attractive for a lot of the yachts that we bring in. That's really the big comment on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's
Sorry.
anything else? Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say also from an owner's perspective, it's great cruising grounds. So fantastic restaurants, great scenery, and lots of things to do for them. So that combines that any boat based out of Palma must have a great life. Really, they can give everything they want to the owner. Plus, they have everything for the crew, and they've got the refit side. It's just a shame there's no berths and no dry docks for our size.
So I just had a question in from someone called Malcolm. Maybe it's Malcolm. It's basically to me directly. What size of boats? But I know this question and the answer. But can you just tell people the size of the boats you're operating, both David and Dughall?
77.7 meters.
96 meters.
And the typical boats that Richard, Fergus, and Sam that you'd want to bring here would be what size?
Well, obviously we've got a few of the bigger boats that we'd like to use Mallorca as an option, but it's not an option yet. So I would honestly consider Mallorca for boats around the 60-meter range
As a top end.
At the moment, the way the facilities stand.
Richard, do you concur?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see when it's great to see when Palladium pops in for a bit of R&R. You kind of can't miss her when you're going to the Paseo. And when Dughall comes in, you can't miss her when you are going for a fish lunch at the Pescadora there with alongside STS Mallorca. So lovely when they are able to get in. But yes, I totally agree with Fergus. So that's 60 meter is the average top size. I don't know what's happening.
But I think all three management companies would bring bigger boats if they had the facilities. I'd be correct in saying that, yeah?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That's what you wanted to hear, wasn't it, Martin?
Thank you, guys. That was wonderful. Right, final thing was the one of my good friends, I think most of you know, Brendan O'Shaughnessy, fired this topic at me. He said, okay, do managers know what captains want?
It would be him.
So captains, obviously, Dughall and David, do managers know what you want? And what do you want from managers?
That's cruel, you know, that's really cruel.
Well, seeing as 2 out of the 3 there I've worked with.
Good.
Can I be political? No, I'm not going to be political. Of course not. For me, what I want to support, obviously, I want to be supporting what I do, but I also want to be left alone to do what I do best. I've been doing it for 30 plus years, and I'm sure David's the same. I know what I'm doing up to a point. So I'm definitely not saying, Richard, that the current manager's not doing that. But what I'm saying, in the past, I have had experience where managers have ended up micromanaging me. And I personally don't respond very well to that. So it's just the way I am. So if somebody wants me as a captain, then they're going to have to deal with that sort of thing. But there's other younger people who maybe need that micromanagement. So managers should really adapt to the captains they're working with, really. And I've got a very, very good working relationship with Master Yachts at the moment. It's probably one of the best I've had in my years in yachting. So thank you very much for that, Richard. And that's not a plug. That's just a comment.
No, I'm just hoping David doesn't dump me. That's
Oh, he's going to. He's going to.
Well, I would sort of follow that up and say, yeah, no two captains are the same. We're all different. We've all got a different approach, different levels of knowledge and experience. From the first trip captain who's just got his first promotion and very pleased and keen to make a good impression, who is going to need a lot of support from his manager and be thankful for it. But to people like Dughall and I who've been many years here, we wouldn't feel the benefit or the enjoy having that much micromanagement. So we both, I think, cherish having given the freedom to get on and do our job. But for me, the thing that I like from having a management company is being able to offload some of the trivia and tedious work, the account management, the budgeting, admin, to free me up to focus more, get my head away from the computer from time to time, and have a walk around the boat and see what's going on. That's where I find the value in it. And also in crisis management. An example, like a couple of years ago, I was going into a port under pilotage, and we picked up a ground line of a small boat who neglected to follow the harbmaster's advice to drop his ground lines as this huge boat went past. So I was faced with a quite stroppy small boat skipper who threatened to arrest us for pulling his ground line and damaging the boat. But that's by the by. But the point was that there was a bit of a storm in a teacup about this thing. We were picking up the owner, and I had lots of things on my mind to worry about other than this guy standing on the dock jumping up and down. And that was great to just hand that off to management and say, yeah, don't worry, we'll pick this up and run with it, we'll sort it out, you just get on with your job. That was a good example of where the backup and support of a management company is well placed and appreciated.
Anything that you think managers could do more of or better? And ultimately the guys on the screen, I'm talking about the things you'd like them to be able to do for the future.
It's a hard one, that one, I think. Because some management companies do a lot. Some management companies don't do enough. So again, it's depending which management company you're working with and which, yeah. For me at the moment, the management company I'm working with, we've got a nice balance going on. I've had it, like I say, I've had in the past where it's too little or too much. So the thing is, they should be open to, like David said, every captain is different. They are very different, and different nationalities, different cultures. So they've got a lot to deal with. So I understand their frustrations, but there really are a very good buffer between myself and not necessarily the owner, but the owner's reps, who don't understand yachting as much as what the owner and don't sometimes understand what the owners want. Whereas we've got a better relationship with the owners than the owners' reps. So, but because of the way it works, we have to answer the owners' reps. So they buffer that quite well and make it much more professional than an owner rep phoning me up in the middle of having something going on with the boss and saying, I want this and I want that. Well, you're not going to get that for a week, mate, because I've got the boss on board. So I just phone up management and say they want this, deal with it, kind of thing, and that works very well. So I don't have anything else that I need from them at the moment.
I'd like to put something in here, just as an interesting part of this is, and I'm sure that the other managers online here will agree with me. Sometimes the communication with the family office or the shore-based office of the owner can be absolutely overwhelming, and we have to do that 24/7. Which is fine, it's great, that's what we're there for. But if the captains had to deal with that kind of communication requests and explanations for people that don't know what a boat is, it would generally overwhelm them. And they wouldn't be able to serve the owner. We have very little interaction with the actual owners of our larger boats. That's the captain's responsibility. He has that personal contact with the owner, and he develops that relationship. We don't need to develop that relationship. But the family offices are overwhelming, and they wouldn't be able to be on the bridge if it was for some of the family offices. I don't know if you guys agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, exactly the same thing. I mean, we're just supporting. We are a support function for the captains. They are the captains of the vessel. They should be running the vessel how they're used to doing it. As if we can supply that relief for them, I suppose, to let them crack on, that's ultimately our role. We've got to understand what they need, and a lot of the time, and everyone is slightly different, as you're saying. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, we're just that buffer, and we're the one that quite often will get shouted at before we, we have to do sometimes the nasty stuff as well. So it's not very pleasant, but sometimes it's a relief to be able to let them carry on and just run the boat so that the boss gets on and enjoys it.
Yeah. Feargus, any comment?
It's for us, it's very much a team effort, and it depends on, you have to build a degree of trust in between the captain and the management company. And if you've got that communication and trust going, then everything works fine. We're all trying to get the same job done, so it's, to keep the owner happy and keep the boat running. So it's quite simple when you break it down.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, Richard, you made a comment about family offices. Out of interest, why is there so much, I say, communication from a family office? Is that a new phenomenon, or has it just become part of the insecurity or paranoia? I'm trying to understand what's changed so dramatically that these guys have to call all the time.
I don't say they're calling all the time, but they also at the same time, most of the family offices, apart from one who has a very knowledgeable ex-yacht captain running it, in my experience, a lot of the family offices actually want to understand why it's costing what it is, because ultimately, they are having to make sure that there's currency controls, there's all sorts. And as these boats get more complex, there are some very strange costs involved that is very, very foreign to an ex-merchant banker that is the head of the family office. No disrespect, but it takes a lot of explanation to them. And that is our role. We have to explain it so that they can understand the expense. So when the client gets back into the family office and he gets asked for he gets shown a budget, they are able to explain to him, and he feels comfortable that they know why it's costing that. So it's part education, but it's not in the sense that they are ignorant at all. They are brilliant in their field, but they don't understand the technicalities of the operation of the yachts that much.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's they want to be able to go to the boss and say, this is why, and he asks them a question, they have the answer there at their fingertips, 100%. They don't want to go, oh, hang on a minute, I'll tell you next time I see you. Next time might be a year's time for another 5 minutes. That's all they get with them. So they need everything at their fingertips when they go up there.
Right.
Every single spreadsheet you can give them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Understood. All right, listen, we're about to wrap up pretty soon, but let's look crystal ball time. What do you want from the future? What do you all want to happen going forward in the future?
Retire.
10
years. 10 years. I mean, I love it, but I will have to retire sometime. Otherwise, my wife will kind of kick my backside from here to tomorrow. But no.
But wouldn't you get bored?
I won't get bored. There's still plenty of places to go. Still plenty of places to go, still plenty of places to see. And every year that I moor stern to rocks in Croatia with an 80-meter yacht gives me a buzz, man. Gives me a big buzz.
I can imagine. Who insures you?
Don't talk to them.
Anyone else? But what's on the horizon?
Exciting. I'm terribly excited to see the new leaders. You know, we have icons of the captains here on this chat, but the new leaders that are coming through, it's going to be very exciting to see how they grow within the industry. And I'm not just talking about captains, I'm talking about chief officers, brilliant chief officers, and just seeing their career path, how they're going to grow and improve. But as David very correctly said, these guys have spent their time, they need to have spent their time going through that. But that's going to be, you know, even though we're complaining a bit about the crewing issues, there are going to be some brilliant leaders in the future that, you know, that we're going to watch them coming up through the industry. That's very exciting.
Sam, or
yeah, I mean, you know, particularly, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a coffee with a young lady today who is going to be, she's looking for her first captain's role, and I think this is going to be something which hopefully we're going to see more of. You know, she still gets knocked back quite a bit, but I have absolutely no doubt she will become a captain, hopefully this season. But we're going to see more of that, I hope. We're certainly seeing it in the junior roles, a lot more kind of diversity, and a lot more girls actually going outside and working on the exterior, and then working up through the kind of bridge roles rather than just being pigeonholed into the interior staff. So hopefully let's see a little bit more of that.
Yep. Feargus or David?
Yeah, well, looking at the bigger picture, I foresee that the green revolution that's starting to take root now in all spheres of endeavour. You know, it's not just in motoring, and I think that we're at a crux now. We're at a breaking point, a lever point in general, I think, and it won't be too long before that pressure starts to manifest itself in the yacht industry. And I foresee that we'll be moving in the direction of more environmentally friendly operations, more environmentally friendly design of yachts, hybrid yachts, sail yachts, solar power, alternative energy sources. I think those things are going to be very key in the next decade within our industry.
Yeah, 100%. And Feargus?
I obviously agree entirely with David on that. I really want to see an industry where we've got better lines of communication, better lines of understanding for all the stakeholders. And we can actually, it's a growth industry, it's still growing massively.
Yeah.
And we've got the chance to set it up and get the building blocks absolutely perfect on it now. So it'll be in good stead in the future for the next generation of it.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think when you hear all the rhetoric about the market performance at the moment and the number of people who can afford to buy yachts, the forecast should be quite healthy in terms of people who will come and play in our small niche industry and become quite a big industry in the future. I think, David, you're absolutely right. I think the work that's being done now across shipyards and all the various infrastructure companies on this, let's say, environmental sustainability topic is quite prolific. And I just really feel that the market will go through what I call those growing pains of putting some very high-tech, interesting new projects together, which are part of the future. And we'll need some different people to run some of those boats as well, because the systems are very different. And that's another thing to sort of look at closely. Before we close out, I've got a comment here from Danielle Edwards I want to just raise from One Ocean Navigational Software. I think some of you know her. Talking about training new crew on bridge and ECDIS systems and software, etc. Is it done often enough with this different softwares, or does it fall on your shoulders as operators and managers to make sure they know what they're doing? That's the crux of that question. So just a general topic on navigation training. Does it Is it fit for purpose? Do you have to do more and more yourselves? Are they fully aware of all the new systems before they get on board?
Well, if your vessel is classed as electronic navigation, then you must have trained your bridge officers in generic and also in type specific of the equipment you've got on board, and they have to have certification in that in order to comply. So that's a legal requirement, regardless of what you feel is important. In my experience, most officers that we're selling with, all commercially qualified officers, they've been brought up with it. They've had training during the cadetships, and they adapt from one system to another very, very quickly. I believe it's not really in the question, but I do believe there should be more standardization of system operations of the basic functions, so that you can step from one boat to another and at least pick up the essential functions without having to read the manual and claw your way through a lot of unfamiliar menus. It's been talked about in the Nautical Institute for many years now, having a kind of pilotage mode where any pilot could step onto any bridge and hit a button and get a display mode which is immediately familiar to him. And I believe that is a way forward also for officers' operations, that they should be looking at that across the manufacturing base of all the different companies to find at least a standardized representation that can be selected. And if you want to have a more all singing, all dancing, fully operational mode as an option, then great. Go to town and showing what your company can do.
Yeah, interesting.
From my point of view, we're not Extus, an Extus yacht, so we're still using paper charts, but we do have electronic navigation, and it's the same with the other equipment on board. Well, with electronic navigation, we are all Extus trained. It's some part of the requirements now for OWs and things, and they're all trained on the Transat, which was what we've got, because we say to crew guys going off to do these courses, because most of my guys have done their courses from being on board. They're still on board. You might as well do Transat because that's what you're on. But with things like radars and things that come on, I mean, I went onto that boat and I'd never seen that radar before, so I had to train myself by reading the manual, literally, or some guys do, as I drive out the harbour and I'm learning it as I go on my first voyage. But a lot, we have a training. We have bridge procedures that we go through and train the crew when they come on, the bridge crew, and we sign them off that they've trained on everything on board, because it's not the same as other yachts.
Any other comment from the managers on that topic? No. Good. Listen, we're literally we're probably let's close off now. I think, Alice, do you want any further questions from anyone, or will we just have a quick roundup? No, okay. Listen, I'm going to quickly round up because we've done a nice hour and 25 minutes. There's some really nice stuff in there. This is all being recorded and we're going to broadcast, because I think there's some really hot topics in there that have been brought up. My biggest concern, and I think it was one that was really shared early on, is this topic of human resources and manpower and project managers. It's been talked about probably about the last 10, 15 years about how do we generate the next generation. And I still don't think enough has been done as a marketplace to really craft a good level of new people, but also to retain them for longer. So we need to look at that as a really interesting topic. I think the other thing you mentioned, Dylan, which I think is a hot topic for the Balearics, is marinas. And I think there's too many marinas across the Mediterranean that claim to be super giga yacht marinas that need to maybe rethink what they're offering in terms of power, waste management, and other elements in terms of the service they provide in terms of technology or technology support. So that's a major part of it. And again, you've all said about refit, and refit is another big part of the Balearics, is this planning element. This planning element to me is a major subject that comes up every single year. And I think it needs to be addressed as a topic of conversations, as how do we improve the planning element of the refit sector. There's lots of things happening in that arena across the market. So listen, gentlemen, you've been amazing. I wish I was there having a beer with you in a pub somewhere proper. And I wish you all the best of the weekend. I thank you for your time and your comments and your candor as always. And take care of yourselves, and I'll hope to see you in Palma in the near future. So thanks, everyone.